No self-hate, self-love embrace, unconditional forgiveness, self-forgiveness, self-regulate, watch for the snake of self-hate. No self-hate, no self-hate. Accelerating the evolution of human emotion intelligence. It's about you, me, us, we can touch the sky, we can sail the seas. We are in the pursuit of self-peace. We educate ourselves in our lifetime in pursuit of all we can be. Our light shine at the same time. We are of the universe, is one in the same mind, on the same timeline. Your success is mine, my success is yours. If you invest the time, evolution is yours. Can't waste another minute. I must evolve, they must evolve, we must evolve. Our emotional intelligence, human love is our only relevance. Let me hear you yell it, I can't hear you yelling it. No self-hate, you are your everything, you are my everything. We are our everything, we are prepared for anything and everything. I'm so great, you're so great, we're so great. No self-hate, no self-hate. I love me, you love you, we love we. We exist individually in a group. This is true, there's only one group. Me and you, we'll see it through. Be this true, where the true. Love thyself first and elevate. Accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence. No
Disclaimer: No Self-Hate is a mental health awareness platform, not a licensed therapy provider or certified psychological organization. All content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice or a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are in crisis or need immediate support, please contact a licensed mental health provider or call, text 988 for the Crisis Lifeline, US only. Some topics may include sensitive mental health themes. Viewer discretion is advised. This channel may include brief use of copyrighted material under Fair Use, U.S. Copyright Law, Section 107, for commentary, education, and discussion.
Hello, and welcome to No Self-Hate, Season 1, Episode 7, Part 3 of 5, What Causes People to Be Unaccountable. I'm your host, Kevin, and I will be your guide for today's episode. So, we pick back up on the accountability episode, where in part 1 we talked about what accountability was and how ownership works. In part 2 we talked about the behaviors of unaccountable people, the things people do to escape accountability, such as denial, defensiveness, minimizing, rationalizing, victimhood, leveraging, escapism or whataboutism. All of these different behaviors we were able to identify. Now, the goal was for you to take those behaviors and first work with yourself and see what things were you, which behaviors were you displaying whenever you were being held accountable. I found quite a few. The most for me was defensiveness. I believe I minimized a little bit. And I was finding myself rationalizing a couple of times whenever I was being held accountable. So I was able to take that information, work on it, and all it did was enhance my overall accountability. So I hope you had that same experience. So today we are going to look into how the mind works whenever we have to deal with accountability. What makes accountability so scary? Why can't we just walk up to accountability and just own it? what's happening subconsciously um, within our own consciousness. Are we consciously being unaccountable, or are there subconscious signals that are being sent to us to make us, react in unaccountable ways? But again, I won't go too deep into it. That's what we have the episode for today. So we'll get started here in a second. Real quick, I want to thank all of my supporters. I want you all to continue to support No Self Hate. I hope that you are gaining the value from No Self Hate that I have been gaining. Life has changed for me, just even since the last episode. I've been working with my family. I've been working with friends. I see the world totally um, differently now. So when I see different things that happen whenever I'm out in public or around the house, I'm able to see something that's very common for all humans. And that's basically, we are all unaccountable. All right. So by the end of this episode, we will find stronger ways to be accountable and improve ourselves to another level, right? Our final level is coming up next for season 1, which is what is emotional intelligence. And we'll go through that 6-part series. That one's going to be a study for us because that is the most important one. It's going to bring all of the different episodes that we've already gone through together and make them all make sense. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, we'll all be on the same page, right? But back to today's episode. I want you to like, I want you to subscribe, share this with family, share this with friends, share this with anyone that's ready to go on the self-service path of improving our minds, our emotions, our spirits, our happiness, our overall fulfillment in life. Okay? No self-hate. All right, everyone, let's get started. Let's get ready to stand in that mirror. The goal is to identify different behaviors or causes of unaccountability within ourselves. You need to be honest. You need to be able to take some of this information and retain it. You won't be able to get everything in today's episode, but if you take notes, you can use your phone, get a pen and paper real quick, or maybe use a tablet if you have that to take notes. But you want to be able to retain as much of this information as possible. Again, the goal is for us to apply this information to our lives and become better people. All right, become better individuals. All right. So what causes people to be unaccountable? That is a wonderful question. Again, I use the traffic example. Someone gets cut off, they pull up next to the car, they roll their window down, and they say, "Hey, you cut me off." And instead of that other driver who cut off the first driver just saying, "Hey, you know what? I apologize. I was in a rush," or whatever reason, and they just go on about their way. No, I didn't cut you off. I was moving there first. Oh, no, you wasn't. No, you weren't. I was there. Right? Now you got this back and forth about nothing. Right? And in today's episode, we'll learn about how unaccountability or being unaccountable creates a very long path, unnecessary path of data exchange or information exchange that leads to nowhere normally, or to something negative. All right. And you'll see that the accountable way is normally the least path of resistance, the path that is the shortest path, shortest path first, right? Open shortest path first, right? That's a protocol, I believe, in IT and networking. Okay. But we're going to take that and apply it to today. And it'll make sense for you here in a second. All right. All right. So causes of unaccountability. Number one is fear of shame. Shame is a highly unpleasant, self-conscious emotion that arises from the sense that something about one's conduct or circumstances is dishonorable or indecorous. And it is commonly includes feeling exposed and judged. Indecorous or indecorous, however you want to say it, right? But think about that. You know, it's the sense that something about my conduct or my circumstances are dishonorable. And it includes feeling exposed and feeling judged. So I want you to think about the times you were shamed. You felt shame. I remember going to school at Hyde Park, getting on the bus one day after school. And everybody was on the bus. It used to be a very long line to get on the city bus. This wasn't like a school bus that would drop us off. We would get on the 63rd Street bus and we would head towards State Street. So once we would get on this bus, the line be so long, you know, when you get up there, you got to be careful because again, you are in front of your peers and they will judge you, right? And what do I mean by that? So when I got on the bus, I went to take that first step and I misjudged it. And I fell face forward and I almost hit my face on the coin machine. Back in the day, I hate to say that, but CTA used to have these machines where like you could just drop coins in it. I remember seeing people drop like hundreds of pennies in it. They used to get so many pennies that after a while they stopped accepting pennies, right? But I almost fell and everyone on the bus was laughing at me. And I was so embarrassed and I felt so shamed. I felt like I was being exposed and like I was being judged. Okay? So shame is real. We're going to touch on shame more. I think shame is very important. You know, shame or guilt. You're going to feel one of the or the both, right? And we'll talk about that a little later. Now, some examples. So now I'm just a terrible person. You always make me feel like I'm the villain, right? Where a person feels so shamed that, you know, they're internalizing your reaction to their actions, right? And it can create shame for some people. You know, some people use shame as a form of teaching, right? Oh, you shouldn't do that. Shame on you, right? Because shame can be used for positive things. Shame, if you have the right mindset, if you are being shamed and you don't take it to, excessive areas or extremities or extremes, if you don't take shame there and you're able to process and think about shame as a teacher, you can definitely leverage shame, right? But you have to have control because it's about how you feel when it comes to shame, okay? Now, here's why shame blocks accountability. Now, we just said that shame, in my experience, could be used to make people do the right thing, all right? The fear of being shamed, right? But here's why shame is bad sometimes, all right? Or most of the times. Why it blocks accountability. Shame gets in the way of accountability. Now, accountability requires acknowledge impact, tolerate discomfort, stay present, and repair whatever the issue is that you caused. Now, shame makes the psyche feel exposed and defective. So it tries to escape that state fast via denial, minimization, blame shifting, shutdown, or counterattack. Okay, another example to help you stay following this definition and what we're covering. You tell someone, what you said to me made me feel bad. So right there, you said that to your friend. Now, your friend has an option. Your friend has an option to feel shame, or they have an option to feel guilt. And from these two options, they can go a lot of routes. They could go the, oh, I don't care how you feel route. There's a lot of routes that they could go. Okay. So you say that to your friend, and your friend, when you said it to them, felt like, oh, I'm a bad person. See, the difference between shame and guilt is shame is I am a bad person. Guilt is I did something bad. Yeah. Keep that. That's a gem. We're going to cover that a little later. We'll go deeper on that. Okay. Shame is I am a bad person. Guilt is I did something bad. Right? So when your friend now feels like, hey, I'm a bad person, I said something to hurt this friend of mine, and instead of reacting in accountability, which in that situation, hey, I said something to upset you and that wasn't my intent. However, I know my actions still made you feel away, and I'm sorry for making you feel that way. Can you forgive me? And what can I do to make sure that we don't have to go through this again? Right? That's the accountable route. But normally, a lot of us, once we feel like you're making us feel like we're a bad person to our own identity, it's threatening our image of ourself. Because my intent wasn't to say anything to hurt you. Even if it did, that wasn't my intent, right? See, unaccountable people put intent before action. And they're normally defending the intent instead of the action. We talked about that in part 1 of accountability, episode 7, which is what is accountability, right? We talked about how unaccountable people take intent and put it over actions. Okay? So now your friend is defensive now. All right? Because you told them something that they did to you, which they don't feel guilty about, because guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is, oh, you're telling me I'm a bad person when all I was trying to do was this. They may be in denial. They may start minimizing. They may start rationalizing. They may say, well, what about that time? What aboutism? Right? You see how shame leads us to these behaviors of unaccountable people? All right. So shame is also associated with feeling small, worthless, powerless, and exposed even without an audience, which directly fuels avoidance. Right? Think about shame. How powerful is it? And if you're not conscious of when you feel shame, you'll get trapped in shame, and you will potentially begin to display the behaviors of unaccountable people. Next up is fear of consequences. So, what causes people to be unaccountable? Number 1, fear of shame. Number 2, fear of consequences, right? What might happen to me? Okay. Now, fear of consequences is the avoidance of responsibility because ownership is perceived to trigger punishment, rejection, status loss, conflict, or humiliation. So when we are unaccountable, a lot of the times we don't want to face the consequences of our actions. Right? That's another reason we find ourselves being unaccountable. Right? We may not want to lose our status. We may not want to be rejected. We may not want to receive a punishment or consequences for our actions. All right, the person is not only reacting to the mistake, they are reacting to what they predict will happen if they admit it, right? So think about that. If I admit this thing, if I admit that I did this wrong, this person is going to change their whole view about me for life. And I don't want that, even though I made this mistake. So I can't be accountable. I can't tell them the truth because it's going to change how we are. Right? When consequences feel severe or unpredictable, avoidance becomes a self-protection strategy. Okay? When you feel that, I remember, and we could use, being our childhood, right? If you did something wrong, your parents would come and, if they knew about it, they would say, hey, did you do this thing? Now, we knew we did that thing. But for some reason, and we know that our mom and our dad knows us, knows everything about us. They know how our facial expression is when we lie. They know how, we get when we're not telling the truth. Okay? But we still go forward and say, no, it wasn't me. Why? Because we feared the consequences. I may get put on punishment. Something may be taken away from me. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to be unaccountable and say, no, it wasn't me. Even though they know I'm the only person that could have done it. Right? So that's fear of consequences. Now, in short, that's avoiding ownership to escape punishment, rejection, embarrassment, or loss. Okay? Examples. You're going to use this against me. Hiding an error at work to avoid being written up. Right? Like, oops, I did that. Hopefully no one sees that. Right? Instead of being accountable. Hey, team, I was working on this. This thing ended up happening. I was able to resolve it and fix it. But I just wanted to make you all aware that this thing happened. Right? And live with the consequences. But no, that's difficult for some of us, right? And I'm in that boat as well. Well, I used to be in that boat. But I do recall me fearing consequences, leads me to being a liar or leads me to deceiving people, right? Now, here's why the fear of consequences blocks accountability, okay? When the brain predicts threat, it prioritizes short-term safety over long-term trust. The person chooses immediate relief, deny, which is lie, hide, deflect, instead of repair. Because repair feels like walking into consequences, right? We used to have this thing, we would say damage control, right? A lot of the times when you tell the truth, no matter the consequences, right? I'm talking about within your relationships, within your family, within the people the dynamic of the people that you love. When you find yourself accepting accountability for the consequences for your actions, normally it minimizes the damage. So, in turn, the longer we prolong or the longer we hide in unaccountability or unaccountable behavior, the more damage we do over time. So we have to learn how to take our losses, okay? Man, I got consequences coming. I know it. I'd rather take them head on now than wait till later on down the road where I still have to face them. Right? Next up, so we have fear of shame, fear of consequences. Another cause of people being unaccountable is identity protection, self-image defense. Now, this is the need to preserve a good self-concept such as I'm a good person, I am competent, I am a great partner, or I am a strong leader. When feedback threatens identity, people engage in motivated reasoning, in defensive coping to protect their self-image rather than update the behavior. Right? This is also where common defense mechanisms show up: denial, rationalization, and projection. Okay? So, identity protection, we are serious about who we think we are. how we see ourselves. Now, the world doesn't, they don't see us the way that we see ourselves. So a lot of us are very proud about how we choose to present or how we choose to act to help others form their ideas of us, right? And sometimes when we lose control of that by, you know, if someone asks, hey, have you ever stolen in your life? Right? Now, a lot of people have, but some people would say no, not because they haven't stolen, but because they don't want you to have that image of them as a thief, right? They're protecting their identity or how they see themselves and how they want you to see them based off what they need from you or how they want you to view them, right? So that's what identity protection is. We protect our identities. Our brain has conscious and subconscious, implicit and explicit processes that are happening for us to always love us to the best of our ability or protect us in this case. Protect how we're seen, how we're viewed. That's important when we're getting into groups and we're getting into status, right? So in short, protecting a self-concept at all costs. I'm a good person. I'm a great leader, even if your projects fail, right? We could use project management again. Even if your projects fail, you still want to feel like, hey, I'm a great project manager, right? So it makes some of the project managers unaccountable to the fact that, hey, no, a great project manager is hitting their deadlines, engaging stakeholders, collaborating with the project team effectively, being efficient stewards of, honor and different things like that across the board. That's a great project manager. But to someone that may not be in that position, they may still want that self-image, right? So it makes them unaccountable to the truth that, hey, you're missing your deadlines. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a great project manager. Things happen and we get it. But if you're consistently across the board missing your deadlines, are you a great project manager? Examples of identity protection, self-image defense. I would never do something like that, right? Right? Someone says, hey, oh, you went behind my back and was talking to this person about me. Oh, I would never do anything like that. Why? Because they may have love for you and they don't want you to see them in that light. They couldn't fathom you seeing them as a two-faced person that talks behind people's backs. They know that would change the dynamic of how you view them, right? So they can't be accountable to saying, you know what, yeah, I was talking behind your back. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Please forgive me. All right? And I'm willing to face whatever consequences you have for me because I care enough about you to have to go through consequences to make sure that we are still good, right? Instead of doing that, they're running away from it because they're protecting their identity. You're misreading me. You're misreading me. I'm not that type of person. Again, type of person. That means that they're projecting or they have projected an image that they want you to have of them. And they can't have that if you think that they're that type of person. So identity protection is pretty straightforward and very important in why we are unaccountable. Now, here's why identity protection blocks accountability. If ownership feels like identity collapse, the psyche will rewrite the narrative, challenge your interpretation, attack your tone, produce excuses, or spotlight their good intentions. The goal becomes self-protection, not repair, right? So Again, you say, hey, spouse, you said this thing and it made me feel this way, right? They'll say, there's a lot of options here. That's not what I meant. That's challenging your interpretation. Again, the accountable thing is, as soon as you hear that, you did this thing to make me feel this way, or to make me choose to feel this way. The accountable thing is, this is someone important. This is someone I love. I care about how they feel about the things that I do. Hey, I'm sorry. What did I do exactly? Let me know what you prefer, and I won't do that going forward. No, they won't do that. They'll say, well, you misinterpreted it. They'll say, why you say it like that? Your tone is horrible. Can you say it another way? Anything but acknowledge that they hurt you, or they offended you, or they disrespected you. Anything but acknowledging that, right? Produce excuses. Well, I did it because you said this to me earlier. Or spotlight, you know what? That wasn't my intent. My intent was to do this. My intent was to do that. And leave it there. It doesn't matter what your intent was. Your actions caused this. We have to acknowledge when we affect the people that we love, the people in the world, our coworkers. We have to be able to acknowledge that. Okay? Because if not, we're going to find ourselves potentially protecting our identity from collapsing in your world or in your eyes. Right? And we'll flip it on you. Say, oh, it was you. Yeah, that was you interpreted that wrong. You chose to view that in the wrong way. All right? All right, so causes of unaccountability, we have shame, fear of consequences, identity protection, and now we have emotional immaturity, skills gap, right? A lot of us are unaccountable because we just don't have this information, right? Or, again, the purpose of no self-hate, we haven't taught ourselves emotional, or we haven't enhanced our emotional intelligence. Again, this information isn't available in school, as far as I recall. This level, right? I didn't have it as a class option, Emotional Intelligence 101, right? So a lot of us are still emotionally immature. And it's not just something you could turn on and off like a switch where you just, okay, now I'm mature in emotion, in being emotional, or in my emotions, right? The toll you have to pay is time, failure, experience before you mature or maturate, all right? So let me get back on it, guys. Isn't us unless that happens, all right? All right, so emotional immaturity, skills gap, a capacity gap in emotional regulation, empathy, distress tolerance, perspective taking, and repair skills, all right? A capacity gap, that's strong. Meaning, if you don't know something, you don't know it. If I don't know how to do brain surgery, and it was never taught to me, I don't know it, right? So my capacity to understand and perform brain surgery is extremely low, okay? Because I just don't know. So the same thing about emotional intelligence. If you don't know, you just don't know. That's the tough part. If you don't know, you just don't know, right? So that capacity gap in your ability to be emotionally regulated. Okay. And all this is when stuff in life, bad things will happen. People will say things that you don't like. People will hurt you. People will not always move in the direction that you move in. How are you going to react? Are you going to crash out every time you see a moment society has taught you is a moment to crash out? You're going to destroy your relationships. You're going to be all alone because you run everyone away because they hurt you. Right? So that's your emotional regulation. Being able to hear hurtful things, being able to go through tough things and not lose your cool. I talk about it in basketball all of the time. What are you going to do when you're down 15 in the third and everybody's missing shots and getting turnovers? Are you going to turn on your team and start pointing and singling people out? Or are you going to be able to keep it solid and keep your cool and come back and win this game? Right? That is emotional regulation. This thing got tough. I didn't panic. I didn't freak out. I didn't turn on anyone. I stayed down till I came up, right? Next up, the person may lack the internal tools to stay present with discomfort long enough to reflect and respond. Let's say that again. The person may lack the internal tools to stay present with discomfort. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We can't freak out every time we're uncomfortable or we experience discomfort. We can't. It could feel unsettling to be uncomfortable. But are you going to lose your cool? You're going to crash out? You need to walk out? You need to go for a walk and take a break? You know, one of maybe a million conversations you had in your life hurt your feelings. You're going to crash out in that moment because of how you feel. Someone said something to disrespect you. Someone did this. Someone did that. You're going to fold. Right? Instead, they react impulsively and then justify the reaction afterwards. Okay? And I've seen that. Right? That impulsive reaction to that. You all know that feeling. When you feel the emotions, you feel it in your heart start warming and beating fast. And, someone, holds you accountable for something or says, hey, man, you're not carrying your weight around here. When you first hear that, a lot of us don't go to truth. A lot of us go to defense. A lot of us go impulsively to, oh, that's making me feel this way. I got to shut you down, right? That's low emotional intelligence. Your ability to go to the truth and identify the truth, no matter what is said to you, is the key to enhancing our emotional intelligence or your emotional intelligence. Is it true what was said to you? If it's true, accountability. If not true, gather more information, but maintain that respect, maintain that empathy. Okay? So in short, emotional immaturity is just low capacity for empathy, regulation, discomfort tolerance, or repair. Again, we must be comfortable being uncomfortable. We must find that. That is the key to our emotional intelligence. Discomfort will make people get violent, say hurtful things, do hurtful things because of the discomfort of how they feel. of how the weight of what you levied on them or accused them of. They fold under it because they were never taught how to handle it. But here's, if you're one of those people, here's the first lesson. If someone tells you something about you that you don't like, that makes you uncomfortable, first see if it's the truth. If it's the truth, acknowledge it. Be accountable. Okay? If it's not the truth, gather more information. All right? But don't lose your cool. Stop being the crash out in the room. And I'm not talking about physical crash out. I'm talking about the emotional crash out in the room. Right? The one that's willing to say, hey, my reality and my world isn't going the way that I want it to. Everybody has to experience me being uncomfortable with this situation. All right. Some examples of emotional immaturity. They escalate instantly, then later say, I was just being honest. Were you being accountable? Right? I remember a guy told to me, one of my mentors, I can't say he was my mentor. He was a good guy, though. He was an older guy in tech. And, I used to talk to him. And, when I was emotionally immature, I would be in meetings and I would say whatever I felt. Right? And he said to me one day, he said, hey, Kevin, have you ever had a thought? I had to think about that for a minute. It was high level. Have I ever had a thought? And it took me a minute. And I said, so what he's saying is, every thought that I have, I say it out loud. So it goes from a thought into our reality. And basically, in short, some of these things that I was saying didn't necessarily need to be said. Some of these are just thoughts that I could keep in my mind and doesn't have to come out, and unless it's necessary, right? But doesn't have to come out and just be everything that runs across my printing press. Filter, right? All right. They apologize, but keep repeating the same behavior. I'm currently experiencing this right now, but I have patience. I have empathy. I have a lot of resources to help teach and, help people understand why they shouldn't, repeat the same behavior and why they shouldn't be unaccountable. Right? But they apologize, but they keep repeating the same behavior. That shows emotional immaturity because they do not have the capacity, okay, to say this thing keeps happening and I keep going through this negative experience. Instead of removing the negative experience by changing the behavior, they're not even noticing that the same results are happening, which are normally negative results. They apologize. So why they keep apologizing for the same thing? They like, what? What am I doing? They're emotionally immature. Because if you are emotionally intelligent or having a high EIQ or EQ, emotional intelligence, you're not going to keep putting your emotions through this same process of having to apologize. The same process of doing an action that causes you to have to apologize or causes discomfort or hurt to someone else. Emotionally, you're not. If you're emotionally intelligent, you're not going to do that because A, you realize how that makes the other person feel. And then B, you realize how it makes you feel, right? I don't do feelings. This is stupid. Yeah, I've heard that before. Emotional immaturity. You're a human. Of course you do feelings. It was feelings to say I don't do feelings. You felt that you don't do feelings. People say these. I don't do feelings. Well, what are you doing? Pretending that you don't feel? Why do we do that? Why do we pretend we don't feel? Oh, it didn't bother me. Yes, it did. See that? Unaccountability or unaccountable behavior. And then last, I said sorry, get over it. How are you going to dictate the pace or the speed or the amount of time that someone else chooses or has to process the events and go through anything to get over something you've done? Now, I get what it's saying. I see what it's trying to say here. It's saying, it's trying to say, hey, if you're highly, or if you have a high emotional intelligence, I said sorry. You should be able to get over this fast. I get what they're trying to say, but they probably don't even understand it at that level. That's high level, right? But I would say this to another person that I know is emotionally intelligent, and understand we have other things to do with our time other than to worry about this emotional issue too long, right? We could talk about it. We could process it. People can be accountable. People can apologize, but we shouldn't have to. Once you become a pro at being emotionally intelligent, it doesn't take long to get through things. You don't get stuck in these places too long, right? So that's high level. But when we're talking about emotional immaturity, this is a person trying to get out of the shame, trying to get out of the guilt, and they want to rush you out of it, right? They want their actions to not be as impactful as they are. They want to control how you feel about what they do. And that's not good. All right. So here's how emotional immaturity blocks accountability. Accountability requires tolerating discomfort while staying connected. Oh man, she told me, I'm talking to my lady or something, and she told me this, and while she's telling me this, she's crying, and this is very uncomfortable. Man, right? But staying connected, knowing that you're uncomfortable, knowing that your heart is beating fast, you're feeling all types of emotions about what you're witnessing, about what you've done. You're feeling guilt. You may even be feeling shame. But being able to fight through that and stay connected, right? That is what accountability requires. Skill gaps make that discomfort feel unbearable. So the person exits into defensiveness, sarcasm, shutdown, or blame. This is sarcasm. Fake accountability is another thing that they'll go to, right? Shut down, stonewalling, or blame, right? And that's a skill gap. You have to have skills in discomfort. You have to have skills in being uncomfortable and still keeping your stuff, still holding your head, still standing 10 toes, solid, right? Still not crashing out. You have to be able to handle it and stay focused on the truth at the same time, right? So in the example of a man is talking to his spouse, and his spouse is revealing something to him that he did, and she is crying, and he's looking at it. He's under the pressure of accountability. He's under the pressure of he's hurt someone that he loves. He's under the pressure of guilt. He's under all of these pressures. It's easy to crash out because you want this feeling to get away from you as fast as humanly possible. You're just over dramatic, or you're just over emotional. It's not that serious. He trying to just get from under this pressure. So he crashing out everywhere he can, denying, minimizing, rationalizing, victim blaming, escapism, whataboutism. Well, what about when you, like, all of these behaviors of unaccountable people pop up due to discomfort, right? Next up, we got earned survival patterns. In environments where mistakes were met with yelling, humiliation, punishment, or abandonment, ownership becomes neurologically associated with danger. Over time, the person learns automatic defensive responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, when confronted, even by calm feedback, right? So, this is your upbringing. If you were in environments where when you made a mistake, someone belittled you, someone called you a name, oh, you're dumb, or someone yelled at you, hey, why did you do that? Someone humiliated you in front of people or just made you feel humiliated. Someone overly punished you. Or someone just said, hey, get away from me. Go in your room. You're not worthy of being around me because you made that mistakes. This happens to a lot of children, right? As parents, we have to be able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable with our children's mistakes. No matter how simple they are, no matter how complex they are. We have to not belittle. We have to not yell. We have to not humiliate. Because if we do, we're teaching our child how to learn automatic defensive responses when confronted. They're scared you're going to yell. They're scared you're going to humiliate them. And that hurts. I had to learn that. Right? We have to watch what we say to our children when they make mistakes, even if that mistake is against you, right? It's one thing of dropping, the milk on the ground and spilling the milk, the only gallon of milk we have, right? And you're like, oh man, you couldn't just hold it? Oh, this is simple. Why couldn't you do that? Right? All the way up to when they do something to you. We have to stop doing that with our children because they're learning out of fear how to be unaccountable because they don't want to be punished. They don't want to be humiliated. All right. So in short, growing up where mistakes led to yelling, humiliation, punishment, or abandonment. And what's the right way to handle that, right, as parents, when we see mistakes in our children or when our children make mistakes against us or against someone else? Again, don't crash out. If you yell, you're crashing out. If you humiliate, you're crashing out. If you belittle, you're crashing out. If you punish, you're crashing out. You're the emotionally intelligent person here, right? And if you are that, you keep your cool. Even if there are consequences for repeated mistakes, the same repeated mistakes, such as sneaking playing a video game, such as not doing their homework or something. Even when that happens, ideally, we want to be able to communicate with this child how to successfully navigate whatever this mistake is that they made. And normally that's by giving them knowledge, right? But behavior matters, okay? Examples of earned survival patterns, upbringing. Why are you coming at me when you speak calmly? Like when you speak calmly, like, hey, you didn't do your homework. The teacher contacted us and we had to do. why are you coming at me with this right now? I got enough on my plate, right? That's that unaccountable behavior. Panic, anger, or shutdown when confronted. Avoiding accountability. And it was taught to them all from earned survival patterns. Because growing up, their mistakes led to yelling, humiliation, punishment, or abandonment. All right. Now, here's why earned survival patterns blocked accountability. The nervous system learned admitting fault is dangerous. So the body reacts before logic. This turns repair conversations into threat events. Fight, flight, freeze responses are well described as automatic fear responses. The nervous system learned admitting fault is dangerous. So the body reacts before logic. They're just it's protecting itself. It's a survival instinct. All right. All right. Another cause of unaccountability, low psychological safety. Psychological safety is the shared belief that it is safe to take interpersonal risks like speaking up, admitting mistakes, or asking for help without fear of ridicule or punishment. When it is low, people hide errors and protect themselves. This is true. I see this in the professional world, in the corporate world, a lot, where people aren't willing to, take interpersonal risks, like speaking up when they see something wrong, admitting mistakes. That's why the buck gets passed. And I'll give you an example that when I was working at an office and, these cross-functional teams, I was on the IT team and, I had to reach out across to another team to, let's just say, we'll just make up an example. Like, if I'm in charge of paying a bill, right? And I reach out to the team that's in charge of actually paying the bill and I tell them, hey, this bill needs to be paid, right? And they receive the message, but maybe a week or two goes by and the bill still isn't paid. And the person that I reached out to, I say, hey, I submitted this, some time ago. The bill still needs to be paid. And they send it back to me. Well, you didn't do this thing. Right? The environment didn't create the psychological safety for that person to say, hey, you know what? I didn't do my part. They were fearful. And they actually sent an email, and this was some years ago, but they sent an email trying to put me on blast. Right? And everyone that knows the process knows that no, Kevin did the right thing, but this person may have not known that. So they sent an email putting me on blast, and come to find out, they didn't do their job. But their initial reaction was they didn't feel psychologically safe to say, hey, I made a mistake. Or they didn't ask for help without fear of ridicule or punishment. So they just reacted. And when they did, I didn't panic. Again, I don't crash out emotionally. I held my own. I saw that this person threw me out in front of everyone, but everyone they threw me out in front of, they know I'm a genuine person. They know I know there's psychological safety there. And if in fact it was my fault, I would openly take accountability for it because I know I would be safe. This is the environment we've created, that we can be honest with each other. Right? And not have to worry about the fear of losing your job. You're human. You made a mistake. But long story short, this person ended up calling me back and basically telling me, I'm sorry. It was on me. I was supposed to do this thing. And I'm like, it's cool. But you know, my accountability IQ so high, I still came back with like, you know what? I take accountability as well. I could have did this thing, right? But they were so afraid because they didn't have the psychological safety that they needed. They weren't aware that this environment we were in is safe. You can speak up. Now, at that time, I don't know about speaking up. You got to watch out now. You got to watch out. But I know about admitting mistakes or asking for help, you know, without fear of ridicule or punishment, right? So, in short, feeling unsafe to be honest without ridicule, retaliation, or abandonment, right? Low psychological safety is a reason why people are unaccountable. Examples: employees hide mistakes because leadership punishes mistakes. Just gave you the perfect example. All right. Partners hide feelings because vulnerability gets mocked. Right. I used to know, some of the guys I knew would be dating these women and they would be madly in love with these women. But because they just met that woman or, only been knowing her a short time, they would hide their feelings because they knew it made them vulnerable and they didn't quite trust that woman with their feelings, right? They didn't want to be tricked or, made a fool out of, all right? Because the psychological safety of them being vulnerable and being able to be vulnerable with that person wasn't available. So here's why low psychological safety blocks accountability. Accountability requires enough safety to be honest. We have to create it. Go back to the example with our kids when they make mistakes. If every time they make a mistake, they could count on you giving them some type of reaction, they don't have the psychological safety to be honest. Without always having to be knocked down mentally or belittled or yelled at or punished, right? We have to create psychological safety so that people can be honest and be accountable. Psychological safety is the stage for accountability. People have to feel that I can be honest with this person. And it doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to be going to happen to me if I do. When safety is missing, people choose concealment and self-protection. The example I gave earlier, your mom asked or your father asked, hey, why did you do this thing? And they know you did it again. You're running from it. So you say, no, it wasn't me. You chose concealment and self-protection, even though all of the evidence and everything is pointing you and you're unaccountable, but because the psychological safety wasn't there for your child to be like, hey, you know what? I messed up, but I'm doing this to work on it. I don't never plan to do it again. I'm here's the things that I'm going to, implement to make sure that I'm on the right path going forward. Right? We got to talk to these kids. Back in the day, it just gets physical sometimes, back in the day when you make a mistake or you do something, it could potentially get physical for you quick, right? But that was when I was a baby. I was a kid. And then my grandfather and them probably had another level of that back when they were kids, right? We're evolving. We are accelerating the evolution of human emotional intelligence and how we deal with our children and how we teach psychological safety and emotional intelligence to them is how we act with them. They're looking at our actions towards them. This is how they're going to treat their children. So it's not always the solution to belittle, yell, punish, ridicule, retaliate, anything, or like that with your children. Sometimes you just need to have a good conversation with them. Okay? Create that psychological safety. But again, low psychological safety is another cause of unaccountability. Cognitive biases, mental shortcuts, automatic thinking patterns that protect self-esteem and reduce discomfort. Again, causes of unaccountability, cognitive biases are automatic thinking patterns that protect self-esteem and reduce discomfort. A classic one is self-serving bias, where people attribute successes internally but failures externally to protect self-worth. Right? You're playing basketball, you're on the team. Everybody, when you're winning, everybody has this self-serving bias that they were, part of or responsible for the win. But when you lose, notice how people like, well, you did miss that open three. You got the ball stolen. You have 4 turnovers. Or you get external. That's these cognitive biases, these mental shortcuts that a lot of us fall for. This is the novice level of emotional intelligence, right? You don't fall for that, right? You stay focused. You look at self first. You don't always go out. But again, that's a cause of unaccountability. Now, in short, automatic thinking patterns that reduce discomfort and protect ego. That's pretty much what cognitive biases do. You support you. So you're going to have these patterns and pathways that you've, developed over the years that protects that identity protection piece, right? That we just went over. The goal is to reduce discomfort and protect ego. So some examples are, my mistake was because the instructions were unclear. What? See, your mistake, was because the instructions outside of you were unclear. So somebody made a mistake in the instructions. It wasn't in your interpretation of it. That's that cognitive bias. They don't want you to think that it was your fault, that you couldn't read those instructions successfully. It had to be the author of those instructions. That's cognitive bias. I snap because I'm stressed. No, you snap because you have low emotional intelligence. But that'll make that doesn't protect identity. No, you had to snap because of the outside stress that or the pressures outside that make you feel stressed on the inside. Cognitive biases, mental shortcuts that happen so quick. If you don't pay attention to them, you'll fall into them. All right. Now, here's why cognitive biases blocks accountability. Bias makes ownership feel unnecessary by explaining away impact. Simple. Ownership. Why would I need to take ownership for the instructions not being clear? It reduces the internal pressure to repair, so patterns repeat. Open shortest path first. What's the easiest, least path of resistance? Oh, to believe this. To believe that what happened to me is something outside of me. My mistake was because the instructions were unclear. So I had a mistake because someone else who wrote these instructions didn't write them for every high school or every grade level, every knowledge level, right? And it happens so quick. Must pay attention to these cognitive biases. Always go to the truth first. Okay? Is it true? Was the mistake because the instructions were unclear? Or was the mistake because you misinterpreted the instructions or you didn't understand them? Look at self first. Remember, I told you, if you look hard enough, you'll find accountability at the self level every time. All right? Just about every time. Okay? All right. Desire for control or power is another cause of unaccountability. A strategy where avoiding accountability maintains dominance, authority, or superiority. If they concede wrongdoing, they feel they lose control of the narrative, the relationship, or their status. Control becomes more important than connection. See, I see this in a lot of leadership and a lot of leaders in the world where they feel that, hey, I'm at this level. If I admit to making a mistake, people may lose, faith in me. People may, my status may be harmed, right? I'm the leader here. I must protect that status. I can't concede wrongdoing, right? So people work hard for that desire for control or power when it comes to unaccountability, right? So, in short, avoiding ownership to preserve dominance, authority, or superiority. Examples: we're not talking about this. I'm your boss. I said what I said. Get out of here. Right? You're not going to question me. I've heard this one before, believe it or not. Again, a few years ago, I had a job, and I'm Kevin. I am going to tell you how I feel in a respectful, honorable. I'm going to tell you what I see in a respectful and honorable way based off my collection of knowledge and all of my experiences. I have no issue with sharing that with you. And I remember I had a manager, and I asked him a question, and he kind of said, "Dude, you don't question me. You're not my boss." That's unaccountable. You had to go to power and control to shift focus from this thing that I said that you did or the question that I may have asked you. That's not the answer. You can't question me. If you're a person that has anyone in your life that can't question you or ask you a question or tell you the truth, man, you are in your own reality. You are no longer in the shared reality. In the shared reality, I want people to tell me the truth. In the shared reality, I want to have peer review over some of my choices and decisions. I want people to be able to question me. And you don't need any specific title. You just need a pulse and to be a human that has logic, that has a reasonable position. Right? And then last but not least, because I said so. That's a lot of us grew up, with those parents. You'd be like, they'll tell you, they say, hey, go in the kitchen and wash the dishes. You'd be like, I just washed the dishes the other day. Why? It's my sister's turn. Why I gotta wash dishes again? Oh, because I said so. Right? I'm pretty sure you all have heard that one. All right. Next up, here's why desire for control or power blocks accountability. Accountability requires humility and shared reality. I'll say that again. Accountability requires humility and shared reality. Power-based dynamics rely on one-sided reality and low vulnerability. So repair threatens the power structure. Right? Again, I'll use the old job that I had. In People just couldn't admit when they were wrong. And these were some of the smartest people. I mean, the most degrees, the most certifications, the most experience in IT, and they just didn't have the tools to repair when they did something, or even acknowledge when they did something wrong. But it can acknowledge when you do something wrong. But it's very difficult for them to do that. That is some of the worst leadership in the world. I feel sorry for any of you that are working with people that when they do wrong can't repair or can't be accountable because they fear it's going to threaten the power structure. I am perfectly fine with being the CEO of No Self Hate and someone telling me, Kevin, you did this thing, or Kevin, why aren't you doing this thing? I don't know every piece of information. I must leverage every resource that I have. I can't see me, whether I have a CEO title or a cashier title. I can't see me. I need your feedback. And we have to learn how to receive feedback in positive ways, or positive interpretation of feedback. Because if not, we're going to find ourselves unaccountable with the desire for control of power, right? Confusing accountability with punishment. A learned association where admitting harm is expected to trigger shame, attack, or humiliation. The person experiences accountability as court, not repair. This belief often comes from past experiences where apologies were weaponized or mistakes were used as permanent labels. So in short, believing that admitting harm automatically leads to attack or humiliation. Remember, this is what I was just talking to you about when you're dealing with your children. Well, you have to create that psychological safety, because if not, they're going to be unaccountable in another way now. They got low psychological safety, and now confusion about accountability with punishment. All right. So examples: if I admit it, you'll use it against me. Saying sorry never helps. You'll bring this up forever. You just want me to feel bad. You hear all of this unaccountable stuff, talking about other things outside of self. Right? If I admit it, you'll use it against me. Right? Believing that admitting, that's kind of sort of manipulative as well too, but believing that admitting harm automatically leads to attack or humiliation. Now here's why confusing accountability with punishment blocks accountability. If accountability equals pain, the psyche avoids it. Simple. I watch a lot of cop shows in interrogation rooms, and it's so difficult for people to take accountability, A, because they don't want to go to prison or be locked up for the rest of their lives, right? And then B, because the pain of knowing that they will be locked up forces them to be unaccountable. The psyche avoids it. It's natural, a natural reaction. If there's pain associated with accountability, people won't do it. So keep that in mind. When you want people to be accountable, sometimes the only reward is just the truth. You don't get to always throw severe consequences or have consequences every time, because if you do, you're kind of forcing them into being unaccountable. All right? People choose defensive coping over repair because repair feels like stepping into punishment. All right? Lack of accountability modeling. If someone never witnessed healthy ownership, repair language, and follow through, accountability feels foreign. They may have learned leadership means never admitting wrong, or learned family systems where apologies did not exist. That is huge right there. Lack of accountability ability modeling. Right? The family example. I've seen families where, man, I ain't never said sorry. I don't say sorry to no man. I don't apologize to anyone, right? That's the family model. So people don't even have an accountability model. Part of accountability is repair. So in short, they never saw healthy ownership growing up or leadership or in leadership. All right. Examples: parents never apologizing. Some of us, our parents have never apologized to us. And that was a lack of accountability ability modeling. All right. Leaders blaming the team for everything. That's just how I am. I said what I said. People don't have these skills. It was never modeled. And I said that earlier. When you're dealing with your children, you have to show them, you have to model the emotional intelligence you want them to have. You just can't tell them. Right? So here's why lack of accountability modeling blocks accountability. If accountability equals pain, again, the psyche avoids it. People choose defensive coping over repair because repair feels like stepping into punishment. All right? Trauma-informed survival responses. Trauma can condition the nervous system to respond to feedback as danger, producing automatic survival reactions: flight, fight, freeze, fawn. All right? In those states, access to calm reflection and relational repair drops. Trauma can condition the nervous system to respond to feedback as danger. Again, we must be able to find positive ways or positive interpretations of feedback, right? This ties into what we already talked about: low psychological safety, or consequences, or yelling, or all of these different things that trauma-informed survival responses. This thing can cause me trauma, or has. I must avoid it. Now, in short, trauma can wire the nervous system toward hyper defense, avoidance, fawn, or shutdown. Examples: overreacting to mild feedback. You hate me. You must don't like me. I had people do that before, right? Disassociating or going silent during confrontation. Trauma-informed survival response. Escalation: yelling, contempt, and threats. Here's why it blocks accountability. When the body perceives danger, the priority becomes survival, not repair. Ownership becomes inaccessible until the nervous system settles. Okay? Trauma-informed survival responses. All right, so what causes people to be unaccountable? All right, so pretty much unaccountability is usually not about bad character. It is about fear and self-protection. Common causes are fear of shame, fear of consequences, protecting identity, emotional immaturity, learned survival patterns, low psychological safety, cognitive biases, desire for control and power, confusing accountability with punishment, lack of healthy role models, and trauma-based defense responses. Okay, so that's pretty much our episode for today. I want you to look at some of these things and let me know if you relate to some of these things. Let me know if you have experienced the fear of shame, the fear of consequences, protecting identity. And I want you to be able to acknowledge that within yourself. All right. Our goal is to minimize and to get better, right? And to increase our accountability IQ. But in order for us to do that, we have to work on the common causes, right? Be able to survive through those. Go back through the video. It explained everything to you, how to get through these different causes successfully. All right. If you're able to do that, you're going to increase your accountability IQ. All right. So, final insight. Unaccountability is usually not a sign of bad morals. It is a protection strategy. We are using it as a protection strategy. Doesn't necessarily mean that we are of bad morals. We could be lacking intelligence. But now we have this knowledge, all right? When people avoid responsibility, they are often protecting themselves from shame, rejection, identity threat, or emotional overwhelm. The nervous system chooses safety over growth, comfort over correction, right? Remember, you want to find ways to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Make discomfort your friend. Don't crash out. You crash out whenever you get emotionally unstable. You fold whenever you get emotionally unstable. You can handle anything this life throws at you, and I can as well. And it doesn't require us getting all emotionally wrecked or harming other people or, being unaccountable. Okay? Just be cool. Keep your cool. Go through it. When you're uncomfortable, learn how to keep your cool. Okay? Accountability requires emotional regulation, psychological safety. Remember, we have to provide that too. We're looking for that when we have to be accountable, but we also have to provide that psychological safety. All right? And the ability to separate behavior from identity. Shame versus guilt. We got that coming for you, all right? Could have put it here, but this episode would have been crazy long. But it's coming up next. We're going to talk about shame versus guilt, right? Behavior from identity, right? I am bad versus I did something bad, all right? And we'll get into it next. I have that episode coming out real soon too. All right, so when people feel safe enough to admit imperfection without collapsing into shame, accountability becomes possible, right? You can admit imperfection without collapsing into shame. You are not a bad person. You are a human being. And you will make mistakes. Okay? Stop making shame your hideout. Stop letting shame convince you that you are a bad person. You just made a mistake. You did something wrong. You aren't something wrong. All right? So with that, thank you for your time and your energy. Go to NOSELFHATE.com. Get your No Self Hate gear. Be fresh, right? Spread the word. Accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence, right? NOSELFHATE.com. All right. Other than that, I want to thank you for your time and your energy. You have been wonderful. I hope you were able to take some information from today's episode. We kept it to like an hour and some change. We didn't want to overwhelm you as this is a lot of information. Please feel free to subscribe, like, comment, share with someone in your life that can use this information. All right. Other than that, I will see you next up on Shame versus Guilt, episode 7, part 4 or 5, coming real soon. All right. Thank you.